they framed us to be, but now yeah. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Speaker Circle, where we are a part of something bigger. And this evening I have with me Dr. Kellie Goss, and she is here to tell us her phenomenal story, not just about survival and prevention, but awareness, and to help all of us think about something that even if you're not affected by cancer, chances are there's someone that you know very close to you that is either predisposed or has actually had a diagnosis. So Dr. Kellie Goss, and congratulations, because she just submitted and got all her final things for her PhD. So woo! So happy to celebrate all of your accomplishments. So tell everyone a little bit about what your story is and your background.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate that. I certainly appreciate you having me this evening. It's an honor to be here, and anything that I can do to help spread awareness, it just is such an important topic to me. So I appreciate this moment in the season. I just wanted to offer a quick background about myself. So again, as Lisa was sharing with you, my name is Kellie, and I am a Previvor. And some of you may not know that term. And a Previvor is someone who has a predisposition to cancer, but who has never had the disease. And so as a Previvor, what that essentially means is my mother was exposed, has had cancer. She's had cancer twice now. She had cancer when she was 41, and she also had cancer a second time when she was 60. And so because she had a high rate of cancer, I got genetic testing. And through genetic testing, I learned that I have a 75% chance of getting breast cancer within my lifetime, and I have an 80% chance of getting ovarian cancer. And for those reasons, I decided to have preemptive surgery, and I had a mastectomy and a hysterectomy in February 2019. And so I'm excited to share more about my story with you.
Wow. Let's just take a moment and digest all of that. So based on the genetic testing that you did, you decided to be proactive and had some of these procedures. And how did that go? Did people think you were really like being extreme, or what was some of the responses you got?
Right. So it was interesting because I had the opportunity to have a test many, many times. You know that when you go into the doctor's office, they ask you what your medical history is. And so I would always share that my mother had breast cancer. And so they would ask me, do you want to take the Angelina Jolie test? And so I would, it's like, no, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm just gonna pass, right? And so they would continue to ask. And so finally I decided to have the test done many years later. And when I had the test done, I didn't really think of anything about it, right? Because it's genetic testing, and all my life I've kind of thought that, or thought that maybe, of course, with my mother having breast cancer twice, that maybe I would get it as well. So when I got the results back, or when they got the results back, they called me into the office. And I was like, I don't want to come in, just tell me. And they were like, no, you need to come in. So I knew that it wasn't really good. And so when I went in to get the results about my genetic testing, again, I was sharing with you all that I had a 75% chance of having breast cancer and an 80% chance of having ovarian cancer. But when I saw and heard the numbers, that somehow made everything I had been feeling for such a long time, that solidified everything and made everything more real, made everything more prominent, more dominant, and made me want to do something about it.
Wow. Well, I will say I have so much respect and admiration for you for taking matters and instead of victimizing yourself or having this whole thing, you made a decision and you did what was best. And how did your family receive the messages, and how was your recovery after the surgery?
Right. Yes, I certainly don't want to make it sound like, oh, it was just so simple, I just made this decision, it was just so easy, because it wasn't. It was something that I struggled with, and it was something that I personally didn't know if I was doing the right thing. And one of the things that I share is because, the first thing that you do when you find out something like this, you go to, Dr. Google, because Dr. Google knows everything, and you try to find exactly what's going on, how to navigate the process and what it looks like for you. And what I found was that there were no people that were talking about what I was doing that looked me.
Wow.
And so that's when I made a conscious decision that I wanted to do things differently. I didn't want anyone to feel the way that I felt. I wanted people to understand and know that people of color, women of color, that genetic testing is an option for them. And so it's one of the things that is very, very important to me. And so when I found out, I was scared, right? I was scared. And I was scared and disappointed because I was just like, Kellie, it's just numbers. Like, why are you crying? Because I was in the doctor's office cutting up, right?
Yeah,
and I was just like, sis, pull it together. Like, it's just numbers. You're okay. You don't have cancer. Like, this is something that you can walk through and work through. And so, yeah, I don't want to make it seem like it was a simple decision. Having the surgery for ovarian cancer, that to me was a simpler decision. So it's one of the decisions that I knew early on that I would have that surgery because me and my husband are older. We have all of our kids and well past the childbearing age. And so to me, that decision was easier. But having the decision about my breast was a little bit tougher because, you know, these are the things that I don't want to make it seem like our breasts define us, but they are a part of some defining moments, right?
Yes.
About, you know, me stepping into puberty and me, you know, breastfeeding my daughter and, you know, her nuzzling up to my chest at night. Like all of these things are wrapped up into my breasts, right? And me having these breasts. And so that was a much tougher decision. And so once I decided to have the surgeries, I didn't really tell very many people.
Understandable. Because I know you mentioned about you didn't see a lot of women of color be active with this. And I know in our community, just in a lot of minority communities, I would say, faith is a big thing. People say, just pray about it, honey, and don't worry about it. I remember when we were going through things with our son who was diagnosed with, on the spectrum with autism. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Everyone's like, just pray and this and that. And we just, and when it comes to mental health and anything, and something as important as cancer prevention and awareness, you're absolutely right. So I can understand you limiting the energy of people that knew what was going on. But I commend you for making this such a topic that people need to know about. They need to know about. Now, did you do both surgeries, thank you, at the same time? And did your insurance cover this?
Yes, so I make the decision to have both of the surgeries at the same time. And even that was, I don't want to say it was frowned upon, but it was like, that's so extreme. Why are you doing that? And so I guess what I first want to say is, before I share my story about the surgeries, is what I first want to say is that this is an individual decision. This is what made sense for me and for my family, and it's not it's not a decision that I made in a vacuum. It is a decision that I made with my family's full support, and everybody else and anyone else can do it differently. But so I'm not advocating for the surgeries, but what I am advocating for is having genetic testing, because I really do think that that is the difference between me being here and being able to celebrate moments with my family and me spending that time battling cancer. So I do certainly advocate for genetic testing. So I'll share a little bit about my surgery. So the surgery was 12 hours long, and it's a very long time. And my parents came down to help take care of me, and they were critical in my recovery process, because I will tell you that there is nothing like having your mama close by. You can have your husband, you can have your kids, but there's nothing like having your mom nearby. She knows how to nurture, she knows what to say, and it made all the difference in my recovery. When I didn't want to walk and move and get up, she would make sure that I did that. And so I really appreciate my parents. Both of them, they came down for, I think they stayed with us for more than 10 days. Wow. And even my family, for the 12 hours that they were in the hospital, they all huddled together, family and friends in the hospital together. And so having a strong support system during this time, it makes an indelible difference in exactly how things progress during the process. And so the surgery took 3 surgeons, because first there is the first I had the hysterectomy, and then after that the doctor came in to do the breast surgeon came in to take out all of the breast tissue.
Wow.
And then after that, the plastic surgeon comes back in to reconstruct everything.
Oh, so they do the reconstruction at the same time as the mastectomy.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Because I was wondering if you had to have something like in stages where they stretch out your breast cavity or anything like that. But no.
Yeah, so you're right. You're absolutely right. So it is done in stages. So what happens is once the breast tissue is taken out, they give you they give you expanders, and expanders are essentially breast balloons, for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah.
And they pump you up during visits with saline until you get to your desired size, or how far your skin will stretch to a normal or given capacity. And then they decide what looks right on you and decide whether or not you want to go up a cup or down a cup. And then once you've decided from having your expanders what size you want to be, then you get actual implants. And that's what I have now. So roughly that process takes about 6 months. It could take longer for some people. Some people have their expanders longer. I had my exchange surgery probably about at the 6-month mark. Yeah.
That is so cool. And then so they did that part, and then once you were done with that is when they went into the hysterectomy part?
So the hysterectomy was done before any of the breast surgeries.
Okay.
And I want to mention too is that because I was having the surgeries all at the same time, I figured I was going to be asleep anyway. I'm an old soldier, so I just figured one shot, one kill. I'm already asleep. Let's get her done.
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and knock it out. And I don't regret that. I'm glad that I did that, because I didn't have to come back in and have this. It was just done. Once I was done, I was done. Of course, I had to come back later to get my exchange surgery, but all of the major surgeries were done at the same time.
That's cool. Now, how common? I know we talked about in our community that it wasn't discussed as much, but just in general, are a lot more people taking this route and becoming Previvors and the genetic testing? If you could also share some resources on how, if someone's like, okay, I don't even know where to start. Do you talk to your primary care physician? Do you have to go to an oncologist? How does that process work as well?
Yes. So in order to get genetic testing done, I would start with either your like a breast, like where you get your mammograms. Sometimes they do them there, or you can start with your primary care physician and just ask about that, especially if you're predisposed to it. And sometimes your insurance will cover it, depending on what insurance you have. Like I mentioned with you all, we are a military family, so my husband has TRICARE. And so all of my surgeries and even the genetic testing was covered under TRICARE. But again, of course, that could differ based on who your provider is. And so certainly ask the question. And once you have the genetic testing done, a lot of people do active surveillance, and that's okay too. And that actually is one of the routes I intended to go. Initially, when I got my genetic testing done, I was just like, the surgeries, I don't know, I'm just going to wait. It's a little extreme. Let me pray on it. And so I was going to wait. And so what they do active screening. And so, so as an example, if I was going to do active screening for my breast, they would in a given year, so like say January, I would have an MRI. And then at the mid-month or the mid-year, in June, I would have a mammogram. So they would pretty much be actively screening me to make sure that they catch something and they catch it early enough to act on it, right? And so I did that. I did the MRI for 1 month as my active screening, and I knew that I could not do that. Like I was claustrophobic.
MRIs are scary.
It was just too much. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I'd just rather be done. I would have to come in every month. It just seemed like a lot. But that could work for somebody else. Like, but it did not or could not. I did not think it would work for me. And so again, it's an individual decision. It's something that, again, you have to make sure that you're comfortable with, and you talk with your primary care physician, because he is the one that my primary care physician. As soon as I got the results, of course, I went in. I was talking with him and following with him, and he was just like, I'm so proud of you. I mean, just affirming me, affirming me. I'm
Yes.
so proud of you for making this decision. I know it was hard, but it's going to be okay. And I think that the more people that you have like that behind you,
Yes.
it makes a difference.
That really does. And it's endearing, because I know you said you have children. So you want to make sure that you do everything you can to set yourself up for success. And especially with, you said that your mom had dealt with cancer, and watching her go through and survive. Is her name Barbara? But
yes, it is. That's
she's watching. Say, hi, Mom, and great job.
Yes.
And I also want to say thank you to you and your husband for being a military family. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice. And I'm glad that TRICARE was really helpful with this, because it's one of those conversations that people seem to be so reactionary with health. Everything we do, we're just reacting based on diagnoses. We are just instead of taking our health in control and being more proactive. So I love this concept, and I think that genetic testing. Now, with genetic testing, do they have things at home kits now? Because I know they have all these different home kits where you can swab your mouth and say, do they have things like that, or DNA or tests like 23andMe and things like that? Do those also help with this?
Yes, they do have tests like that, but I'm not familiar with those as much because I had mine done in the office. But they're out there, and I would certainly recommend it, because even just knowing what the numbers are will give you an opportunity to figure out how to react to it. So the surgeries may not be the answer for you, but again, because you know the numbers, you know your percentages, now you know kind of that you need to be more proactive. And even that helps. That helps then you just wait, because I felt like that's kind of what I was doing. I felt like I was waiting on cancer to find me.
Wow.
So every month I would, be nervous, and my mom would always get on me and my sisters about making sure that we would actively check our breasts each month. And I have to be honest with you, my self-check game was raggedy. I barely checked, because I just didn't want to be in the shower and find out by myself. And my mom, she found both of her lumps through self-check or self-exam. And so I highly recommend that. If you're not doing that, that's certainly something that you need to be doing. You need to be doing it with a degree of consistency, because you know your body better than anyone else. And so when there's something different about it, you will know likely before anyone else does.
And that is so true. Like, people, you need to listen to your body. We have a very dear friend of ours, and she was able to catch her cancer at a very early stage, and it's such a blessing. And you're right, the self checks, and we are. I'm guilty of it too. You just take it for granted, or you, as women, you may have your cycle, and you're like, oh, I just feel this knot because it's my cycle, and you just ignore it, and then not really, or even having your. I know that Pap smears are not always the best way to detect ovarian cancer and things like that. But at least you're doing some type of pre-screening. And so I can imagine the level of just ease to your mind once you have the testing and then you made your decision. So now do you still get pre-screens and things like that? I mean, obviously for not the ovarian side, but just in general, any kind of cancer, or you feel like you mitigated
I have a 1% chance now of getting breast cancer. And so I still go in to get checked annually. And so even I don't get a mammogram anymore, of course, but they feel around. They feel for lumps probably that I would normally miss. And one of the things before my mastectomy, I was religious about. I wasn't very good about doing self-checks on every month, but I was religious about getting a mammogram. And one of the things that I share often is that you have to be your own advocate, because I knew that my mom, of course, had breast cancer and had it a couple of times, but they were telling me, oh, you're too young to have a mammogram. It's not time yet, because, they've all, there's guidelines about how they've dictated a time frame or when you are eligible to get those, and they'd be covered by insurance. And so I would be diligent every year to write letters to my insurance company about, no, this is important. No, I need this. And no, this is why I need this. And so we have to be our own best advocate. Even when they tell us that it's not important, you know what's important. You know your family history. So I would just say, you do what's best for you, whatever that looks like.
That is such valuable advice, Kelly. I really appreciate you saying that, because a lot of times, whatever the medical professionals say, we just leave to let it go at that. But to your point, if you know you have a family history or whatever, or if you just feel something in your gut, you should definitely continue to ask and persist. And if that medical professional is not able to meet your needs, there's no indispensable primary care physician, right? You can certainly find someone else that would help. And you want to communicate effectively, which I do want to kind of transition a little bit about communication, because you and I are sisters. We're in the same sorority. So, but one of the things that I've gravitated to you is your communication style and being so calm. With that, you having these intense and really difficult conversations with different doctors and things, did you have to elevate at all and get really heated, or did you feel like being even keel and really calm is what helped you get things accomplished?
Yeah, I think certainly being measured works for me. That might not be everyone's approach, but you talked about this earlier, so I know you're gonna know what I'm talking about. I was listening to you one time. You were talking about Enneagrams, right?
Yes, Enneagrams.
Yes.
I love it.
So do I, right? So I'm an Enneagram 1, and we like things just so. And that's kind of how I've moved all my life. And I think it has a lot to do with me being the oldest child. And so I like things just so. I like to plan. I like to know what goes in this slot at this given moment. And so that's how I approached everything. And so when I went in to talk with doctors, again, I would have everything researched. I would have all my questions. I would know what I wanted to ask. I would walk out with the answers. And that worked for me because it gave me a peace of mind. And so it's one of those things that, again, you know, whatever fits your strength, sometimes popping off and going off, that works for people. that gets things done. But for me, I know that just having a measured approach and just knowing exactly what I want to come away with, I want to know what the end result is, and moving toward that mark makes a difference.
Wow, that is powerful. And I think, I know I saw Kayla on here earlier. She is part of Katie. She's the owner of KDL, who does all my branding. And she's the one who put me onto Enneagrams. And she truly believes in it. And I think it's important to know your strengths. And that's going to translate communication for all parts, because we think about communication in our work lives. But when it comes to your personal health care, it's important to have a communication style, to know your strengths and weaknesses, and then to leverage others who may be able to give you the resources. And speaking of leverages and resources, I know this has become a big movement for you. Your Instagram is so awesome. I love all of the different abstract photos and art that you really have embraced. How can people get to know more about what you're doing, your movement, and what organizations were instrumental to helping you get through this process?
So as I was sharing with you all, one of the problems initially, kind of that forced me out of the shadows, was just really not thinking that this was something that Black women did, right? Because if you don't see yourself represented, then you don't think that it applies to you. So when I would look online, I would see, white women and their friends, and they would be celebrating, and they would be supporting them and championing them, and just really, it was just a really different feel. And I shared with you all that my circle was very small, because initially when I shared, I just didn't get the reaction I expected. And so my sister, my baby sister, her and one of my good friends, my dear friend, they threw me a buy boobs party. It's called
I love a reason to party. So.
Yeah. It was a boob voyage. And
boob voyage.
Yeah. But you see them on the internet all the time again, but you never saw us like doing it, right? So I was excited but uncomfortable about it. And I'm so glad that they talked me into it, because they were like, Kel, like, come on, like, And I'm so glad that I had that moment. I'm so glad that I listened to them and agreed to allow them to do that for me, because it was almost like a rites of passage. It was like stripping away everything else and now being reborn into this new person. And had I not had that kind of line in the sand, I don't think that I could have celebrated in that moment. And so it
Wow.
was just a small group of friends, just surrounded by love. And you, because this is such an important decision, and because you don't know whether or not you're making the right decision, and that level of support, that love really pushes you to the point where you feel like no matter what, regardless of what
Mhm.
happens, I know that I'm doing the right thing.
Wow.
So yeah. So about the sites, one of the sites that helped me during that time was the Breasties. It's an organization that helps women with reproductive and breast cancers, and they have really been. They're all just amazing. There's just a level of support there that they have wrapped their arms around me, and that community is open and welcome, and they are giving and sharing. And one of the things that I was able to share with my baby sister, and how I was able to really connect with the Breasties on a larger level, is that they did a camp, and the camp was like 4 days in the middle of Pennsylvania, and my baby sister went with me.
That's
And I,
so cool.
yeah, it was cool.
This is
And I didn't
prior
share it.
to your surgery or after?
It was after my
Okay.
surgery, but, and also after, I didn't share with you, after my baby sister went through her breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so she was young, is young. Sorry, she is young. Well, she's 36.
That's
And she also, like my mom, found her lump through self-check.
wow.
And so certainly stress the importance of that. So me and my baby sister went to this camp in the middle of nowhere, sponsored by the Breasties,
That's
and it was everything. So in that experience, I found my tribe. I found women like me who get it, and it has made a world of difference. As a matter of fact, the Breasties have an Atlanta chapter, and I'm one of the Atlanta ambassadors.
that is really nice. And just
Yeah,
like mom is making sure you understand that was your middle sister, but they're all
that
your
was
big
my
sisters.
little sister.
I love your mom. I just want to say thank you, Miss Barbara. You're amazing. I can't wait to meet her one day. But that's so cool.
Yeah.
So there's chapters all around the United States that you can get involved with if someone. Now, do you have to have already had a diagnosis or genetic testing to be a part of
Mm-mm.
this? Or so you can
Yeah.
just be an ally if you're not?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's a breastie. That's the best part.
That is
Yeah, that's the best
really
part.
good.
Everybody's a breastie. Everybody that wants to align, anybody wants to be a part. And there are thrivers, carevivers, previvers, survivors. I mean, there's everyone. And the tent is wide enough for everyone. And I just think it makes a world of difference when you have people around you that support you, and people that get it, and it makes a difference. And I was sharing that in our culture, we don't widely share, right? It's, what goes
Everyone
on in this house
survive on
stays in this
their own
house.
credit. Yeah.
Don't be out there telling everybody my
My
business.
business. With all kinds of help. All kinds of
Exactly.
help. I mean, you can have an
Yeah.
in-law, they're like, don't be telling them my business.
Don't be telling everybody. Yeah. So,
But
yeah.
that's one
So,
way we
yeah.
learn is by sharing.
Absolutely, by
So
sharing. And so that's why it was really important to me to kind of shake the table a little bit. And initially, I would write all of this down because I really didn't have anybody to share it with. I didn't really know
mhm.
who it would offend, or even if it would resonate with someone. So I just wrote
Yeah.
everything down. And so essentially, all of the information that I was writing down, that information turned into my blog. So I put everything into words, and then I put it into my blog.
Wow. And what's your blog called?
Yeah, Brown Girl and BRCA Plus. Yeah.
And what's BRCA Plus? What does that mean?
Yeah. Okay. So BRCA is so I am BRCA1 positive, and so we all have a BRCA gene, right? But the difference between me and anyone else is that my gene is mutated. I have a gene mutation, and so that gives me a higher probability of getting cancer.
And that's why you said the genetic testing is so profound to have. Brown BRCA plus, and that is so cool. Now, your mom said talk about the camp in Texas. Is there one near you in Texas that you or? I mean,
yeah. So,
business. Barbara telling the business.
Yes. So, in February we had a breasties camp. But it was a retreat, but it was just for ambassadors. And it was for us to simply be connected and to love on one another and to hold space for one another and be intentional about doing that. And so, like I said, the breasties, they do free events. A lot of them, a lot of these retreats and events that they do are free. They're a nonprofit organization, and it's just love them. There's just, I don't have enough good things to say about them. I absolutely don't.
Well, I have put the resources on the screen, breasties.org. Please check it out. Don't feel like you have to be a Previvor at this moment, or anyone can be an ally. So that's great. So I'm going to check it out as well.
Yeah, and then, you have to.
Please, I would encourage everyone to check out Kellie's blog, as well as she's on Instagram under the same handle. Your page is so inspiring. As we get ready to wrap up, are there any? First of all, I'm just so filled. I am inspired by your story. Thank you. Your strength, your courage to be the change that you want to see, to create a space where you saw there was so much lack. You have no idea the reach that you've created and how many people you're making a difference in their lives. And the fact that we're being proactive about our health and making sure that there's something, because I really, to be honest with you, I didn't understand how big genetic testing. I know when you have a baby and you go through blood tests when you're pregnant, that they talk about genetic testing, but not as an adult. I didn't realize it was so accessible. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. One other thing too, for men, let's say, I know you said you had sisters. Do you have any brothers?
I do.
Your brothers, did they also do the same genetic testing? Is it the same? Because I know men have breast cancer as well.
You're right. Absolutely. My brother has not been tested yet, but my sister, the one who had breast cancer, the middle sister, as my mom said, to me, they're both babies. I am 16 years older than one and 13 years older than the other. So
they're both
sisters. And so the one that I am 13 years older, the middle sister, she is actually BRCA1 positive also. And we got our gene. We're BRCA1 positive. My mother is also BRCA1 positive. And so that's where we got our gene from. So, yeah.
And that makes sense why having the decision to do the preventative surgery and things makes sense. You've seen what happens, and then witnessing what your mom went through. I think it's so proactive to take that. And I just wanted to encourage men as well. If you have family members that are close to you that have different genes that you feel like like BRCA1 positive, that it makes sense for men to also get the genetic testing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that it seems, I liken it to jumping out of a 2-story building because you think that the wiring is faulty. Because all it is numbers. You don't know if you're ever going to get cancer. So it's crazy, right? To cut off perfectly good breast, and it doesn't make sense. But to me, it took away every bit of fear that I had.
Yes.
Every month, I was afraid of what I might find. Every year when I had my annual mammogram, I was afraid of what they would find. And so now I live a life that is free of that. I live a life that it makes a difference. And what I found is that I thought that I would lose so much in losing a part of myself. And what I found is that in having those surgeries that I've gained so much more.
Because
I've gained this tribe, I found my passion, And it just really makes a difference. And I feel like I want to tell everybody, get tested, it's important. And so I just really feel like I found like this new passion, and it's helped me to find a different side of myself, one that I may have never uncovered had I not had those surgeries.
That is, I mean, I could not say it any better. You're absolutely right. And in my branding, I love to talk about extreme ownership and supreme accountability. And that's the ultimate. If you know that something is what is causing you to have anxiety or being nervous, doing everything you can to quench that source, to get that limit, that sour point out of your life, which what you did. So regardless of what other people think, you kept saying, you said this throughout this whole interview, it's an individual decision. And I'm so proud of you for doing what was best for you, for your family. And I tell you, your just peace of mind, your glow, your energy is so contagious. So I'm really excited about your tribe, and I can't wait to learn more about the Breasties, and as well as your blog. So thank you again. And I thank you all, everyone who was watching. Your mom, she's so sweet. She says she's so proud of you. I don't know if you can see the comments on the screen.
Thank you, Mamacita.
Amazing. You've done a great job. And kudos to you, Ms. Barbara, for your courageous fight and your survival as well. And I just want to thank everyone else again for watching. We'll have the replay here on YouTube, and please reach out to Dr. Kellie Goss. Now she's on Instagram as well as her blog. And we look forward to continuing to grow together. And I just appreciate your time, your talents, and for sharing your powerful story.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. You all have a great evening. And thank you, Soror Lisa, for your help with this. And God bless you.
God bless you as well.